So on this channel, we talk a lot about gaming audio, but not so much about gaming peripherals and gaming in general. And today I want to talk about the current peripheral setup that I have as of late 2020. Now, to understand where I'm at this point, you got to understand where I've been, what I liked, what I didn't like for gaming peripherals. So we'll start with the early 2019 setup that I had. So the early 2019 was this keyboard, the G915, which is a massive full-size keyboard, non-detachable wrist rest, wireless, Lightspeed wireless. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, in general, this is actually a fantastic keyboard, but it's huge. It's absolutely massive. And I don't really use number keys in my day-to-day life, so I didn't really need it. And then I was using a classic, which is still one of my favorite mice, the G303. The Daedalus Apex is what this is called, actually. Now, this mouse is really great. It's got a diamond shape. That's going to be a polarizing shape, but for me, it's actually perfect. But what I don't like about it is the clunky cable. So I kind of made it my mission to try and go as wireless as I possibly could, but still getting all the other features that I wanted. Now, early 2019, I was also using the HD58X from Drop. That was a great gaming headphone, but I was using a Blue Yeti and I wanted something that was combined. So I really wanted to minimize things as much as possible, which is ironic compared to what we're gonna talk about. Now, late 2019, I picked up the Drevo Blademaster TE, which is a 60% keyboard. It's a lot smaller of a profile, as you can see. It's got all the fancy colors and everything on it. But one of the things that I learned with the G613 was that I didn't want to adjust volume with buttons. Didn't really like that very much. I don't like clicking on it. I like a dial, so I wanted to find a 60% keyboard with a volume dial. Now, this actually fit that bill perfectly, but it's actually surprisingly hard to find a volume dial on a 60% keyboard. Now, this keyboard is wired, and they do have a wireless version, but they're using Bluetooth, and I'm not a huge fan of Bluetooth. I much prefer either the Hyperspeed tech from Razer or the Lightspeed tech from Logitech. I think all the Bluetooth keyboards and mice have like a noticeable delay, and it kind of irritates me. I'm not a huge fan of it. So I will go wired over Bluetooth and then Lightspeed or Hyperspeed over wired. The keycaps are okay. The key switches are browns and they are just okay. Not my favorite, but not something I dislike either. It's just not particularly ideal for me. Overall, this keyboard's pretty good, but I knew I did want to get rid of the wire eventually. Now, when I switched that, I also switched to a different mouse, and I wanted something familiar to the 303, but I wanted something wireless. So that's when I picked up the 305, which is a phenomenal gaming mouse. This as a mouse outside of Ergonomics is exceptional. The price is like 50 bucks. It's great. It's got the Lightspeed wireless tech, so it's on par with wired connection. The battery life is exceptional. The buttons are amazing. Even the placement of the buttons I think are fantastic, but that goes into the ergonomics category. No complaints for this guy. I actually really like this. It's not as light as the super lightweight mice that are available right now, but it's still pretty good. And you know, you can get a lot done with this mouse, and for 50 bucks, it's an absolute steal. Now, when it comes to the ergonomics, the shape of this is close to that diamond shape of the 303, but not quite perfect for me. And the slightly rounded outside edges of this, as opposed to the slightly inverted edges of the 303, actually make a big difference for the grip style of it. And this is, again, very good mouse, but not perfectly ergonomic for me personally. Now, right about this time, I also switched over to the PC37X gaming headphone, which is a phenomenal upgrade for gaming specifically over the 58X. And I actually really liked that until I upgraded recently to the 38X, and I gave the 37X to a friend. Okay, so flash forward to now, 2020. I'm using a not very efficient hybrid system that gives me mastery of certain domains, in my opinion. For keyboards, I'm using two, and I'm also using two mice. Not a very efficient system, like I said, but the usefulness is really nice. So for keyboards, I actually switched over to the G915 Tkl. So this keyboard has all the fancy colors. It's got the small form factor. It's got a little bit of a forehead, as you noticed, but I was more worried about the width than anything to begin with. It's got the scroll wheel for the volume, media playback buttons. And as far as keyboards go, I think that this thing is just about perfect for me when it comes to typing. So there are two domains that I use my computer for on a regular basis. I type reviews like this, and so I'm typing a lot, Googling stuff, and so I want a nice typing experience that's easy, ergonomic, etc., etc. The G915 for me really fits that bill. For those of you who shake your keyboards often, it does rattle a little bit, but the device is really solid and it kind of feels like typing on slate. It's weird. It's a very mechanical feeling thing. And I like it a lot for that. Now, it's not perfect for gaming, so I have another keyboard that is better for gaming. Unfortunately, I like two different hand feels for gaming and typing. So that's where the two keyboard system comes in. Now, the second keyboard is the Drop Enter. Now, this keyboard is, for lack of a better term, limited, and I like it like that. There's a couple reasons why I use this for gaming. One, it is wired, so I don't have to charge it. It's always gonna be working when I need it to work. It's not gonna die in the middle of something. I'm not gonna get a notice on my desktop that says the keyboard's at 10% or something like that. So it's very reliable. The chassis is extremely stiff, and for a $90 keyboard, like I'm putting a lot of pressure and there's no creaking or cracking on it. For a $90 keyboard, this is very, very impressive actually. Now the stiffness on it allows for no distractions in terms of the key presses, and it also has good enough feet to where it's not actually sliding when I'm getting a little too heated and kind of pressing down into the keys. My keyboards tend to slide around a little bit. Now the other features of this that I really like are the keycaps. They are more rounded and kind of have a little bit of a dip in them, so your fingers aren't going to shift position as easily as the more flat keycaps of the 915. Underneath the keycaps are Gateron yellow switches, which I actually really like. They're more progressive. The further and further you press down, they resist more and more, but the actuation point is super high up. It's like you barely tap these things at all and they'll activate. And for the quickness and the speed of an FPS game, that's important for me. And I actually like the feeling of using them, but everybody's gonna have their own personal take on that. Now, the last thing is something super simple, but for whatever reason really matters for gaming for me, and that's the layout. This is what I would consider to be a completely plain keyboard, and I love it for that. Let me explain why. So there's no weird height to any of the keys for my hand. So like I'm never running into the top of a key or the bottom of a key on accident and accidentally pressing it. There's no weird function key on the bottom left-hand side that I might press. If I bring the 613 out, one of the problems with this is that it has the G keys on the side. And sometimes instead of hitting the control, I would actually go like further out and hit the G key instead of the control key. I have no idea why, because my pinky shouldn't be moving any further, but there was something about just knowing that there were keys over there that I would actually accidentally press them all the time. So I like something that limits the possibility of me messing up and doesn't require me to get used to a proprietary keyboard shape like some of those, I think it's the Black Widow from Razer, that kind of single-handed keyboard thing that's for gaming. That's a very atypical shape, so you kind of have to get used to it. I don't want to have to switch to another keyboard and then reacclimate to regular keyboards for gaming all over again. Now, as far as mice go, I actually use two right now. So this is the Razer Viper Ultimate, and this is the Logitech G Pro Wireless. And these are very good in their own respective ways, but they're also quite a bit different. Now, the G Pro is a little bit more modular of a design. You can adjust the thumb buttons and the weight. You can't do that on the Razer Viper. And what I like this mouse for is games that are very much like finding a subject and clicking on it, highlighting an area and then boom. So head clicking basically, where it's just like one or two hits. Games that are very low time to kill, things like Destiny or Battlefield 1 was kind of like that. So you didn't need to track a subject for a long amount of time. Now the Viper is different. So one, it's lighter, but less battery life. And for whatever reason, the shape of this is not as comfortable as on the G Pro, but neither are ideal for me, to be honest. This mouse for me, I'm better at tracking subjects over a longer period of time. So this for me works a little bit better on games that have a longer time to kill, like Apex Legends or Call of Duty Warzone. Those types of games where I need to cover a subject over a broad period of time and they're going to be moving around a whole lot, this is actually ideal. This works really, really well for that. But when it comes to head clicking, G Pro is the way to go. So that's the current setup right now. Since things are constantly in flux, things are always evolving over here. I want to talk a little bit about what I want to upgrade and what it would take for me to change certain things and kind of the future of the peripheral setup. So as far as keyboards go, I don't know if the perfect keyboard is going to exist for me. I like a different tactile feeling to gaming and typing. I prefer different keyboards. And so even if I found a middle ground, I think it would be usable. Like right now, the 915 is totally usable for everything. And it's great at everything. It's just not ideal for everything. So even a middle ground, I think I would still have like an alternate perfect gaming keyboard and an alternate perfect typing keyboard. The mouse, as I talked about, the ergonomics are not perfect for me for either mouse, though the technology is actually really good. Obviously, both could do with more battery life. You know, if they had infinite wireless battery life, that'd be perfect. Maybe we could see a version of the G Pro wireless that didn't have the weight system, didn't have the lights, and didn't have adjustable thumb buttons. And because of that, maybe it was a little bit lighter and maybe even had better battery life for like 25 bucks cheaper. Maybe Logitech, that'd be kind of cool. In a perfect world, I'd love to see a Lightspeed wireless G303. They could keep the weight, just drop the cable, and again, add the Lightspeed, not Bluetooth. And I think it would be fantastic. The headphones are an inevitable change for me. This is something that is constantly evolving because I'm always using new headphone equipment to test for the reviews that I do. So that is something that is going to evolve whether I want to or not. Though the performance of the 3.8X is something that I think is perfectly adequate. And I don't really think there's much room to upgrade at this point, but we'll see what the future holds. Okay, guys, I think that's going to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching up until this point. I appreciate it. I'd love to know a couple things, and if you wouldn't mind filling in the comment section down below. Any suggestions you have for my setup? I'm constantly looking to optimize little things here and there. I know my mouse pad right now, which is just like a standard Logitech XL mouse pad that's like long and covers, you know, all the active surface area. Mouse pad game is not the best. I'm looking to upgrade that and go down that rabbit hole. So if you have any suggestions for that, it'd be great. If you have any suggestions for a 60% wireless, not Bluetooth keyboard that has a volume dial on it and great switches, I'd love to hear it. I'm not aware of one that outperforms the 915, but if you've got one, then perfect. And then finally, I'd love to know what you guys got rocking for your peripheral setup in the comment section down below. And until the next video, my name is Josh, signing off.